and I give the call to the honourable member for Richmond. The Minister has the call.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I too rise to speak on the Albanese Labor Government's National Anti-Corruption Commission, Bill 2022, and of course our amendments. Deputy Speaker, trust in government is so important, and this bill delivers on our election commitment to legislate a powerful, transparent and independent National Anti-Corruption Commission by the end of the year. And we went to the election and put that to the people. The bill will establish the Commission as an independent agency and empower it to investigate and report on serious or systemic corruption in the Commonwealth public sector, also to refer evidence of criminal corrupt conduct for prosecution and undertake, really importantly, education and prevention activities. Now, of course, Deputy Speaker, the Commonwealth is the last jurisdiction in the nation, the last one to implement an anti-corruption body. And our national model draws on the very best elements of all the state and territory jurisdictions, which of course have been operating for a considerable time. And the reason that we are indeed the last jurisdiction relates specifically to the inaction of the Liberals and Nationals over many, many years. We heard them promise quite falsely many times that they would introduce some form of a national integrity body, albeit a very inadequate form, but they never actually delivered on that. They failed to establish one, and they also failed to actually introduce any legislation into the House to that effect. And this is despite widespread calls right across the community for such an entity. People en masse were calling for greater transparency in the federal government and the federal jurisdiction. And Deputy Speaker, establishing a National Anti-Corruption Commission is vitally important for our nation. It's important for people to have trust and faith in all their institutions. And this is an issue that I have publicly called on so many occasions over the years, and it's one that Labor is absolutely committed to. And it is Labor that is now delivering on this and delivering on our election commitments. It was also, of course, one of the major issues in this year's federal election. And particularly in my electorate of Richmond, this is an issue that I have spoken with many locals about for a considerable period of time, for years in fact, and one of the major policies that we took to the election. Now, Deputy Speaker, I'm very proud to be a strong voice for the New South Wales North Coast in the Albanese Labor Government. We are a government that's delivering on integrity, on honesty and accountability through this National Anti-Corruption Commission. We know how important this is. And, Deputy Speaker, I put this to you and I come to this from a number of perspectives, but particularly in my time as a former police officer. I certainly know why oversight and transparency is so important to the proper functioning of all our institutions. It actually matters because integrity matters, and we need to have those oversight bodies across all of our institutions. And that's why commissions with that oversight and investigative powers really do matter in terms of people's trust. Now, of course, today we tabled our amendments to further strengthen the bill, and these amendments follow very careful consideration of recommendations made by the reports from the Joint Select Committee on the National Anti-Corruption Commission and the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights. As a result, these committees have presented the government with a range of recommendations and changes, and I would like to run through some of these because they are very important and really do strengthen the bill. It particularly broadens the safeguards for the protection of journalists, and I'll go into further detail about that later. It also improves the safeguard for the well-being of persons who may require assistance to comply with the summons or notice to produce, and expressly permit people to disclose information to a medical professional, which is vitally important as well, given the circumstances that they may be in. It also requires the Commissioner to advise a person whose conduct has been investigated of the outcome of the investigation. It also amends the definition of corrupt conduct. It also requires surveillance and interception warrants to be issued by eligible judges of federal superior courts, and enhances the power of the Commission Inspector regarding witnesses' summons and arrest warrants. It narrows the grounds for bringing contempt proceedings, and it's amending the requirement that all evidence which discloses legal advice be given in private. So these are really important amendments to strengthen the bill, and it has been through this entire process that we've been able to strengthen the bill and listen to all of those concerns that have been raised. And Deputy Speaker, this legislation is a cornerstone of our agenda to restore public trust and strengthen the standards of integrity in our federal government, and that is what Australians voted for. And the design principles were, of course, developed with legal and integrity experts. And as I've said, this National Commission very proudly is the first of its kind, and it draws on the best elements of existing state and territory anti-corruption commissions and laws. And I would like to now speak to a number of important principles of the bill. In terms of the jurisdiction of the Commission, the bill provides the Commission with a very broad jurisdiction, which is important, to investigate serious or systemic corrupt conduct across the Commonwealth public sector. The Commission will have the power to investigate ministers, parliamentarians and their staff, statutory office holders, employees of all government entities, contractors and contracted service providers. It will, of course, and very importantly, have discretion to commence inquiries of its own initiative or also in response to a referral, and it will be able to investigate both criminal and non-criminal corrupt conduct and conduct occurring before and after its establishment. So that issue of that retrospectivity is vitally important too. And of course, Deputy Speaker, the definition of corrupt conduct is central to the Commission's functioning and jurisdiction, and it is consistent with very key elements of existing definitions. And the definition encompasses conduct by a public official that involves an abuse of office, breach of public trust, or indeed also the misuse of information. And of course, the Commissioner's powers will be very widespread, a full suite of powers very similar to those of a Royal Commission. And the Commissioner is able to use these powers to undertake an investigation into a corruption issue if the Commissioner is of the opinion that it could involve serious or systemic corrupt conduct. And indeed, to determine whether such an allegation would be serious or systemic, the Commission can also undertake preliminary inquiries using powers to compel the production of information, which is vitally important to establish the facts to move forward. Now, very importantly too, in terms of the hearings, again, the Commissioner will be able to hold public hearings if satisfied that it's in the public interest and exceptional circumstances justify doing so. And this is extremely important. The exceptional circumstances test is really an appropriate threshold. It really is, because of the, firstly, significant nature of the power to compel a person to answer questions at a public hearing, often the sensitivities involved in holding public hearings. For example, there may be potentially the risk of prejudicing a future criminal investigation or a trial, or also taking into consideration the issues of reputational harm that may arise. So it's important that the Commissioner has that capacity. But indeed, this Commission and this Commissioner will be totally independent, and that's, of course, secured in a whole variety of ways. As I said, they can conduct investigations of their own initiative in response to referrals or allegations from any source. And ensuring that independence is vital to the absolute essence of this Integrity Commission. But of course, there will be oversight of the Commission by a parliamentary joint committee and an inspector, and the joint committee is multi-partisan. And of course, they will have a number of roles as well, all very important safeguards. Really importantly, Deputy Speaker, this bill provides whistleblower protection, something that I feel strongly many people in my electorate do too. Strong protections against whistleblowers, against adverse consequences, including criminal offences and immunities, and public officials making disclosures to the Commission will be protected under the Public Interest Disclosure Act, and that is vitally important, that people feel confident to be able to put forward that information. Another very big issue in my electorate, indeed I know right throughout the country, was the importance of having journalistic protections also, and this bill ensures that those appropriate protections are there. It does include an exemption for journalists, a journalist's employer, and persons assisting a journalist in their work from answering questions or providing information that would actually enable the identity of an informant to be ascertained. And there may be a number of people that are assisting a journalist in their professional capacity in terms of people associated with their work role, or indirectly assisting a journalist, for example, a lawyer providing legal advice. And it's vital we have this, and that particular aspect is enshrined in this because those journalistic protections too are at the heart of the importance of this legislation. Equally important are the reputational and well-being safeguards, and it needs to be balanced with really strong safeguards to ensure that corruption investigations do not cause undue damage to a person's reputation or well-being. And this can include requiring public hearings to be held private unless the Commission is satisfied that it's in the public interest and exceptional circumstances justify holding a hearing in public, or requiring the Commission to clarify the capacity in which a witness is appearing at a public hearing. And it's important to have all of those safeguards in place. And also permitting disclosure of information that is subject to a non-disclosure notation to a medical practitioner or a psychologist. And I think that it's important that people are able to do that and have the capacity to do that, sometimes given the circumstances of the investigations. And of course, also, if the Commissioner forms the opinion that a person has not engaged in corrupt conduct, a statement to that effect. And if a person gives evidence at a hearing and is not subject of any findings or opinions in relation to the corruption allegation, a statement to that effect. That is so vitally important, and we need to make sure that those safeguards are provided. Also, the element of reporting is vital as well. Reporting at the end of investigations will provide transparency and also support the Commission's prevention and education function as well. And after completing a corruption investigation, the Commissioner will be required to prepare a report setting out their findings and recommendations. And we know how important it is that that is in place. The prevention and education functions are also necessary. They'll also have a mandate to undertake a whole range of corruption prevention and education functions, and that can include undertaking public inquiries to examine corruption risks and vulnerabilities and measures to prevent corruption, and also, of course, the role of a broader public education in terms of the role of the Commission and the corruption risks that may potentially occur and avenues to report corrupt conduct. So it is a very widespread remit that the Commission will have, but really important, I think those educational aspects and prevention play a very vital role in the success of the Commission. Now, as I said, Deputy Speaker, for many, many years I've been on the public record absolutely supporting the establishment of a National Integrity Commission. I've called for that because of the need for transparency and accountability. As I say, we need to have it in all of our institutions across all levels of government. And the fact we haven't had it has really been a disgrace, and it's taken the election of a Labor government to make it happen. It has been for many, many years. We have had so many people throughout the community, right across the community too, not just in legal circles, but a whole range of different community sectors and individuals, and countless numbers of people that have raised it with me over the years, and I have wholeheartedly supported that for many, many years to have that in place. As I say, for many reasons, but primarily in my background as a former police officer, I know how important it is that people can see there are avenues to have a protection for our institutions and a capacity to make sure that action can be taken and investigated. And it's important for all of those people within the institutions to know that such strong integrity measures do exist. At the same time, it's important to have a whole range of safeguards in place. The balance has to be right, and this bill and our amendments absolutely get that balance right to ensure that people can absolutely have faith in this, Deputy Speaker. I'm really proud to be speaking on this bill today because it has been many years to get to this point, and it is really important, one of the many important bills that we've passed here, and I, along with all my colleagues in the Albanese Labor Government, really look forward to the whole Parliament coming together to really pass this important legislation to finally establish, and we will do that, a powerful, transparent and very importantly independent National Anti-Corruption Commission. And I certainly hope that indeed all of the House supports it. It's important for us in this institution and important for the general public to see this is what their government is doing. This is what the Labor government is doing. And Deputy Speaker, I commend the bill